Hi there guys, today we will talk about basic airbrushing and the first question that we usually find are how much pressure and how much dilution. The answer is easy, it depends. So we are going to see why this is the answer. As I said, it depends. The different pressure will make easier to control the airflow, but the airbrushes that we have seen previously in other videos can control the flow with the trigger. It's not easy, but you can control making more or less pressure on the trigger. I'm used to work with higher pressures and I find difficult to work with lower ones. A pressure of 26 psi will work nice for me and is not too high. You can also use 12 psi and it still works nice. When you use the airbrush with low pressures, you need to dilute more the paint because the low pressure will make easier to slap the airbrush. Higher pressures allow you to use thicker paint like milk or something similar. If you want to make laces, you have to use semi-transparent paint. Also, if it is summer and it's hot out there, you need to dilute a bit more because the paint will dry faster. Or if you are airbrushing from far, the paint will travel more time and dry before reaching the model. So to sum up, skim milk and 26 psi is a great combination. And with that, you only need to practice. The hard thing about the airbrush is to understand its physics. It's like a transmitter. The airbrush launches particles of paint in the space like light did. That's because it's so useful to create volumes and lighting. If we pull back the trigger just a bit, we create a thin line. If we pull back a lot, it creates an arc like this, covering an extensive area. I'm going to use this piece of a particle. If the object you are painting is near, the particle will reach it with no problem. If it is too far, it will never reach the target. And if it is too far but enough to reach, it will reach but dry in the travel, creating a texture like sand or something similar. Even if it is too close and we send paint to the same point, it will create spider legs. I really don't know if it is the correct name in English, but we will see it later. I will use a blue to make some tests and I will dilute it only with water. This is the dilution I'm using now. If I press, the air starts flowing and when pulling back the trigger, paint starts flowing too. If I'm perpendicular to the point I'm airbrushing, I will create a small area of effect. But if I use another angle, like this, I will create something like a car light, a floodlight. And if I increase even more the angle, it creates a larger and a thinner line, as you see. The small amount of points around the main spot is because of the dilution, which is thick, or maybe we have a low pressure. We can dilute the paint more, and now it covers less and I have to apply several layers to cover. There are less points now. There are still some, but less than previously. We can dilute even more, so we control more the layers. If you airbrush close to the object, it creates, as you see, thin lines, but as I'm going far, the line grows and gets wider. What happens if I insist in the same area before drying? We will create spider legs. To avoid this, we can use a lower pressure or let the area dry before, controlling the amount of paint we use with the trigger. Something like this: pull, stop, pull, stop. Always paint a bit and dry, paint a bit and dry, so we can avoid the spider legs. As I said, to avoid this effect, let the previous layer dry or airbrush from more distance. Look, if I insist in throwing paint in the same area, it will create a spider legs again. Now we will see something about physics on the airbrush. As I said, it throws particles, so if I put an object in its path, this is what occurs. I say that because sometimes we airbrush without care and different parts of the miniature are in the middle of the flow path and create areas where the paint doesn't reach. That's useful to simulate lighting, but we have to play with angles to create the correct effect. We have seen it in painting our space marine. When painting an sphere or any other shape, the nearest part will receive more amount of paint than farther ones. The closer part of the sphere, in this case, receive more particles and the rest will receive less particles, so it creates a gradient because are far from the source. The same thing that happens here. So we have to play with distance, dilution, and angle of airbrushing. Typical problems you can find are too much dilution, or the opposite, which has an easy solution in creation or decreasing dilution, or maybe the paint can also stuck in the needle's tip, but you can clean it with your fingers like this. Common mistakes that we make. We are painting something. In example, I want to paint this barrel. If I do that, painting the barrel, the particles will bounce on it and reflect to other near parts, painting them too. If we want to paint only one part, we have to use masking tape. It's more usual or it's more common when we use higher pressures. So it's a very common problem and you have to be careful. Another thing that I usually see is people that use the airbrush first with only air, then pull the trigger back, blowing paint, and when they finish, instead of bringing the trigger forward to the starting point and then releasing it, they stop the air flowing first. So the thing is going to happen is the paint will stay in the needle. Look, there is paint in the needle now, and when we start blowing air again, the drops will fly over and stain our model. Look, trigger back, drops on the needle, airflow, and drops fly over the paper. We can avoid this problem easily. When airbrushing, we push the trigger and pull it back, and when we finish, we bring the trigger forward and after that we release it, stopping the air flowing. That's the way to avoid drops on the needle's tip. Remember, back trigger, forward trigger, and release trigger. You can also pull back the trigger to its maximum to clear the needle, blowing a short burst of paint in a paper. It usually works when it blocks. Well, this is the basic operation of the airbrush. The rest is to practice and practice and practice again. After using the airbrush, I recommend at least a 3-step cleaning process. The first, with an airbrush, we use water and clean the cap, blowing it out in a barrel or something similar, which is something important not to harm ourselves breathing toxic particles. After that, I use alcohol to clean minor rest of paint. I don't have alcohol here, so I will use the airbrush cleaner as alcohol this time. And finally, I use the cleaner to give a final wash and clean the few painting rest that could remain. I do that in this way because with water I won't find any incompatible paint, but with alcohol could be. But when there is just a few paint, alcohol won't create any problem. You can also take the needle out. Better if you take it out forwards instead of backwards. And be careful when you put it again, making it softly. With the easy cleaning steps, you can use it several times without a deep cleaning. Well, these are the basic steps of airbrushing. If you like it, we can do advanced ones in the future. But really, what I recommend to you is the P vitamin P for practice. So I hope I resolved some doubts. And if you have any other, just ask us and we will answer. Now it's time to use the airbrush. So thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye bye.